Hello, everyone. Welcome to our speaker series. If you're a member of the Small Business Owners Networking Group, I am excited to have you here. Today, guys, I have you guys gonna be blessed today. I have a legend here, right? He's a colleague of mine. His name is Jeff Knauss. This dude built an 8-figure business. I figured he could share some of those knowledge with everyone here that's gonna watch this training. Take notes, grab your pen and paper. I know I have my notes right here. So, Jeff, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jupiter, it's great to see you, man. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for jumping on. All right. So, before we get to the good stuff, what I like to do is learn a bit more about Jeff. Who is Jeff? Where you based? How'd you get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, the short version of that story is I live in upstate New York, about
Hmm.
4 hours up from north of New York City, and grew up in the area, studied abroad, met my wife. She's from Finland, and
Nice.
she moved over here, and we built a life in this area. I got into entrepreneurship. I started in broadcast television, so I went to
Yeah.
school, college, got into broadcast TV, was a salesperson, sold TV airtime, basically commercials,
Yeah.
and then got into sales management. Realized really quickly that I wanted to get in the digital marketing space. And the only way
Mm.
to do that in broadcast was to kind of take a step back in my career, going from
Okay.
a TV salesperson, sales manager to a digital sales manager. Technically, was a step back, and I always wanted to step forward in my career. And so
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to go to a digital marketing seminar where I just happened to meet my future business partner. He was a really brilliant guy, but I recognized that he really didn't belong in front of a crowd. He was really tech
Mm.
savvy, super smart, but his main kind of skill was not presenting to people.
Ah.
And that happened to be my skill.
Wow.
And so I went up to him, I talked to him. We got to know each other. We spent like 2, 3 years just going to lunch and getting to know one another. And one day we're just like, hey, let's get this business started. So I started a digital marketing agency with him and
Nice.
bootstrapped it. So we didn't take any outside investment, lived off our savings, and it made it a
Wait, hold on. Stop right there. Before we go
yep.
any further, two questions. One, you said guys spent 2 years just getting to know each other. What were some of the qualities that you found in him beside the fact that he's a genius technically? Like, what are those other qualities you're like, wow, this will be a great business partner?
Great question. So I recognized that I had not met anyone that was able to walk the walk that this guy did.
Mm,
He understood not only how to run great digital marketing campaigns to drive
yeah.
ROAS, return on ad spend, to drive return on investment, but he also was able to articulate the value proposition of what it was in a
Hmm.
technical way, but in a way that I understood that then I could distill and bring it to even less savvy marketers,
Gotcha.
right? And so because I knew and on top of that, so he complimented my skills. Any business owner that's looking for a
Yeah.
partner, I always say, don't find someone like yourself. You got to find that puzzle piece that matches you so that they can
Hmm.
take their piece of the pie and you can take your piece of the pie, but nobody's eating each other's pie, right? And so that was a huge advantage for us. But the one thing we had in common was we worked. I mean, I remember in the first year, it was Christmas Day, and we had a client that was upset about their website being down. Had nothing to do with us. We didn't do anything wrong, but we were on the phone with the server. We were doing everything because Christmas Day was a big day for them, and we were doing
Yeah.
everything we could possibly do to get that site back live. And after about 3 hours of spending time away from our families, being on the phone with
Wow.
another with the client, we got the site back up, and the client was very happy that we took the time to do that on Christmas Day. So he had the same work ethic as me, but he had very different skill sets than I did.
Let's talk about that first year because I think that's an area a lot of entrepreneurs kind of fell off. Just start, things not going their way, and then slowly kind of like disengage, and then they end up quitting, right? So that first year for you guys, you bootstrap. I bootstrapped my last company as well, right? What was that like, living off saving? And what you have family back then. What was the mindset like? How did you prepare your family for that journey?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most incredible parts of my life is that I have a truly incredible life partner. My wife
Yeah.
had to And you know, I was working, so I was offered the job of the vice president's role at the TV station the day that I left to start my company. So I was turning down a pretty major promotion,
Yeah.
level up in money, a level up in benefits and all those things to go off and make no money. And the craziest thing was at the time we had a 3-month-old and
Oh,
that was our
wow.
first kid. So we didn't know what it was like to have kids. We didn't know the response. Like it was all new to us.
Yeah.
And you know, that was a time that it seemed like a crazy time to just quit the stable job, go off in entrepreneurship world, make no money for 12 months. We didn't make any money for 12 months and live off ramen noodles. But I will say in hindsight, it was actually the best
Yeah.
time because kids don't need a lot. Like he was a
Mm.
3-month-old, he's in diapers, he's not asking for switches and laptops and iPads and all that stuff. And so we were able to really like live, you know, live like I grew up, which was
Mm.
no, my parents made no money. And so luckily I had saved a lot as a kid because I was fortunate enough to kind of hit my career running, saved up a bunch of money and we lived off that savings for a year. And thank God I did that. But yeah,
Wow.
it was tough. And I will say that when you're faced with challenges and you're going through the hard times and you feel like giving up, it likely means that you can't see a path forward. And I think that was the difference for us. Even though there were certainly hard times, even though it was
Mm-hmm.
challenging and new and difficult, and it felt like sometimes like we were up against a wall, I always could see the vision long term of where we
Mm.
wanted. And as long as you can see a sliver of that path, it gives you the hope to move on. And so that's
I
what I
love
always
it.
encourage people to do is think, what's that long-term vision? Get really excited about that. Just make it one more day. Just make it one more day.
I love it. Take it one day at a time. I
Yeah.
like that a whole lot. What would you say was that biggest mistake in the first year? Because one thing I realized is sometimes pricing is something that people, especially if they're first business, they don't know how to price things properly. What was you guys' first like or biggest mistakes that first year, if you remember?
Well, so it's about so it's 2014, so it's 10 years ago. And I would say that um we made, I don't know that we had a big mistake. We had a lot of failings, but one thing that I think makes an entrepreneur is their
Mm.
ability to uh constantly iterate and optimize. And so for us, we made a lot of mistakes. I mean, we would go in, to your point, pricing, we had no idea. We had no idea about our product, how to productize. It's our first business. We didn't know how to
Yeah,
systematize. We didn't know what process looked like. We were just like throwing stuff against the wall,
figuring it out.
talking to clients, like just begging people to work with us and give us money. And it took a year of figuring
Yeah.
all that out. And there's a lot of micro failures in that, a lot of micro
Mm.
failures in that. But I think the thing we did well was we would try something quickly iterate on that thing, learn from the mistakes, learn from what worked, do more of that, do less of what didn't work. And it was
Mm-hmm.
that constant optimization of, you know, fail, win, fail until you got to a point where, you know, okay, now we're at a point where we can hire our first employee and then things really changed for us.
Gotcha. So that the first employee came in what, year two, year three?
Just on the cusp of the end of year, at maybe in the beginning of year two, end of year one is when we decided to hire our first employee.
When did you guys make that first six figure? Was it year one, year two?
Yeah,
Or year
we
three?
barely made, so we made and like $4,000 the first 12 months of being in business.
Congrats.
So just barely made it over that 6-figure mark.
Yeah. But from that to year two, now you guys kind of start figuring it out.
For sure.
What
So
changed?
so year two we did $850,000 and I
That's
think,
a big jump.
well, so that's right. And we ended up being the 52nd fastest private growing company in 2018. Our revenue looked like 104,000 year one, 852,000 year two, 3.2 million year three,
Wow.
5.2 million year four, 7.2 million year five. Everything was up and to the right. And then I
Amazing.
think like 11 or 12 in year six. And then year seven, we did 15.5 million. And so every year was a pretty exponential growth.
Yeah.
And it was after that first year where we started to kind of understand, you know, the basics of getting, I wouldn't say we had it figured out by year two by any stretch of the imagination, but we understood where we need, like just for us, it was like the thing that kept us in survival was we got
Mm-hmm.
business development and fulfillment. So retention and business development, that was where we got good. We weren't great at like systematizing or
Mm-hmm.
productizing our services, or we didn't get great at systematizing our processes. It took year 3 or year 4 to get OKRs in place,
Mm-hmm.
objective results. It took you 4 or 5 years to get a wiki in place. But what we did well in the beginning was once we've honed in on that, like, what's our pitch? That's when we really caught some fire. And then because my partner was so great, he could fulfill.
I love that because it shares that, a lot of people are thinking, how do I get to a million? How do I get to a million? But they haven't even figured out sales yet. So the fact that you guys got really good at that, if you mind sharing, what were some of your marketing tactics? Were you guys doing more workshops, networking, ads? What was working that allows you to kind of do that rocky stick growth between year one and year two?
A tremendous amount of it was networking, because we did the majority of our business was local regional. And
Mm,
so my goal was, if you're in the upstate New York area, Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo, Albany, my goal was to be the brand. If you thought about digital marketing, you at least,
yeah.
maybe you don't pick us, but we're at least in the ladder of consideration for you. And whether you're a small company, a big company, we wanted to penetrate the mind and brand that we were the digital marketing. And when you focus on a regional effort like that,
Yes.
it's a lot easier than trying to be, everything to everyone
National.
else. Correct. And so for us, a lot of it was going out and speaking. Speaking events were huge. There were
Mhm.
times where I was doing 3 to 4 speaking events a week. Uh,
Nice.
whether it was for leadership departments of companies, or, bigger events throughout the area, nonprofit events, whatever it was.
Mhm.
If people wanted someone to speak, whether it was marketing, business leadership, scaling, whatever it was, I would take that opportunity, because I love teaching at scale, because it allows you to A, build credibility right away,
Yes.
and B, it gives you the opportunity to have everyone know you, but you don't necessarily know them. So
But it build that trust factor with
oh,
you. And it helps
correct.
you grow too, because you're getting leads at the end of those events that turns into sales because that trust factor move quickly.
And yeah, and it was, I always thought of everything we did as more of cover fire. If you do enough of it, they may not need you today, but in
Yeah.
6 months, when they do need you, like, oh, I saw you speak at that thing.
Yeah.
Really great. I'd love to talk to you about. And it's like, so you're always just planting these seeds, and
Exactly.
you're waiting for the harvest. And if you do enough of it, the seasons will come.
Fantastic, man. This is gold right now. I'm sure if you guys are getting this, I really want you to think about how he was planting seeds every single day. And he did it at scale because by speaking, he's in front of a big audience. So he's not just doing one-on-one conversations, which helped them a whole lot. Now, let's talk about from year 3 to year 5, right? That's when you went from six figures, multiple six figures to seven. What was like the biggest lessons and challenges going from that six figure to seven? Because that's something a lot of people struggle with, right? We get to six, we get really comfortable, we're making $500,000 a year, like, oh, we're good. But we want to go to seven, but yeah, it never happened.
Yeah, man. It's a big jump. And in that year that we went from like 850 to 3.2. That was crazy, because we grew so fast, so quickly. We were in business for 7 years until we sold in 2021. And in the year, so we moved 7 times in 7 years, because we needed
Yeah.
expanded space every time. Um, I think the biggest challenge is people think, oh, you're growing so fast, it's so great. It can be. It can be. Uh, but I would also share that the biggest challenge was really hiring. I mean, keep
Mm,
up with the demand. Not only we were in this place of, I would say, in that year 2, year 3 range, we had this really tight knit group of people, call it 10 to 15 people. And then
yeah.
we reached a tipping point where we're growing so fast that our account managers that were handling accounts, the digital marketing producers that were executing on the accounts, we were giving them so much work so quickly that they're like, oh my gosh, I'm underwater. So we're like, okay, we're going to help you. We're going to go out and hire a bunch of people. And I think we doubled our staff in like a month and a half. I had a director of HR that I'm like, just go nuts.
Wow.
We doubled our staff. Worst mistake I've ever made. One of the worst mistakes I've made worse,
I'm
but
glad you shared that.
it was
Why?
it was a bad mistake because forgot we skipped a lot of the processes that had gotten us to be such a great company, such a great
Mm,
operating company.
yeah.
When we hired all these people, it was like a cattle farm. We'd move
You
people
got
through
to
the interview
train them,
process.
all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. We'd rush the interview process. We'd get people in. We're taking warm bodies. We're like, that'll probably be good enough, and then training was just a cluster
Oh my
because
God.
I had my director of HR doing both the recruitment and the training processes. And so, people weren't being trained properly. They were making mistakes.
Mm,
They're new. You can't blame them because they don't have the support.
yeah.
Maybe we don't have enough line level managers to help. So we basically did a pendulum swing. We were in a point where like everybody was complaining because they didn't have enough support. We didn't have enough employees. And then we overhired and everybody's like, who are all these people that suck? That was not great.
Oh man. Now let me ask you, how does when it comes to retention during that time, right? Like how was that retention of client base? Because they're not getting that same level of service they were getting. All of a sudden, all these people trying to figure it out. Did you guys have to let a lot of people go? That's the ugly side a lot of people don't talk about.
That's it. That's it, man. It definitely is. And I will say that at the end of year three, when we made the jump from 3.2 to 5.2 the next year, I sent an email that I actually kept where I sent an email to my leadership team and said,
Mm-hmm.
hey guys, I did a deep dive analysis and I'm really worried about the business. Here's why. And
Mm,
we were in a point where we were losing our biggest client at the end of the year. And then if you combined all the other churn we had coming up year over
yeah.
year, we were looking at 40% churn of our current
Ooh,
clients. 40%. And I said, it doesn't look great, which it wasn't great.
yeah.
So we needed to figure out the retention model. Like, how do we go about making sure this doesn't happen? We
Mm-hmm.
obviously, my fault. I overhired. I made some bad choices, and so we need to rectify those quickly and make sure that we're supporting our employees, giving them the training they need, hiring slow, firing fast. The whole
Mm-hmm.
um, and we have to put our foot down on the pedal with business development. And that's really the
Mm,
thing that saved us because we still grew, even with 40% churn year over year, we still grew 2 million bucks. And so a lot of that came from just grit, going out, doing as much biz dev as we could, uh, taking our time hiring great people, um, leveling up the people that we did hire in
yeah.
year three, and then that worked out, and then helping them get to that next level so they could be the next in line for managers. There was a lot of that. It was a lot of like very quick movement in terms of
Yeah.
if you can do the job and you're responsible and you're on board with our mission, you live our values, we'll accelerate your growth. If we're growing, we want you to grow. And so
Mm-hmm.
those really great, A+ players, we brought them along with us. And I think they stepped up in a way that allowed us to continue to grow 2 million bucks, even though we lost, call it two and a half to two and something like that, like 2 million bucks or something.
It's interesting. You lost 2 million, but you gained 2 million. So technically, you didn't lose anything.
We were up 4 million in new business, basically. I
That's
think it's
amazing. And I'm assuming by that time you had a really good biz dev team. It wasn't just you
nope.
speaking everywhere.
No, it was
Really?
actually just me and it was just me and there was we'd gone through some people with
Mm-hmm.
one biz dev. It was only ever one biz dev person, or it was another like a biz dev leader and a biz dev person later on. But in that year three,
Gotcha.
it was just one biz dev person and myself. But the way that we really grew was through the speaking, the marketing, the brand. It was really brand
Brandon.
evangelism more than it was biz dev. Uh,
Yeah.
it was a lot of, like I said, we just wanted to be very well known, and I think that's the biggest thing. And one thing that I think people underestimate is when you have a story like this where you're growing and you help bring on these great people, all of our marketing, all of our external like Instagram stuff, we didn't talk about this is the newest trend in marketing. We didn't do any of that shit. What we did was we hired amazing people and we gave them the spotlight. And we said, we're growing so fast that our number one goal on social media is we want to attract really awesome people that want to work
Wow.
for the company. And what that did was it showed A, we're a fast growing company. So inherently
Yes.
people would see that and be like, oh, they must be really good at what they do.
Yeah.
And then B, it did attract really great people. So we'd have A plus players on the team. And C, it just evangelized us across the community. Even if you weren't in the market for marketing, somebody's aunt shares it because now
Yeah.
they're part of the team and they're so excited because their daughter is being featured on Digital Hyve's Instagram and all this stuff. So it was just that really worked well for us.
That's genius.
Yeah.
That's genius. I love it because it helps build a culture of, high performers, excitements between the people, but also it helps you guys grow even more because now everybody's keep thinking of you.
That's right.
I love it. So, couple more questions and then we're gonna wrap things up, right? Going from 7 to 8, what would you say was that main differential factor?
Scale and process like operational efficiencies. When
Okay.
you are a startup, you got to have your head on a swivel. You got to wear every hat. You got to be hands on.
Selling.
You
Let's
got to be
go.
hands on. Everything needs to be as a founder. You got to be touching it all. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when you cross over to, and I think it's less about revenue and more about employee size. When you
Mm-hmm.
get, one of my business coaches told me this, when you get to a point where if you can stand up in a room and shout and everyone can't really hear you and understand you, that's when you need to change. That's when you need to evolve in your leadership.
Mm.
So at every phase, I feel like it was like your first employee, your first 10, your first, call it 25, 35 was a big marker for us for some reason. 50 was a big marker for us.
Mm.
So at these different employee level bases, you needed to evolve your leadership style, or I needed to evolve my
Mm-hmm.
leadership style. And B, we need to focus much more on systems than like individual contributor work. We just
Yeah.
create processes that said Kevin does X to this person's role does X so that it's
Gotcha.
interchangeable regardless of who's actually in the seat pushing the buttons. That
I
was
love it. I love it. Now, let's talk about what you got going on now. First, you were able to exit that, so congratulations. That's huge.
yeah.
After exiting, what'd you end up doing?
The short version is I thought from a very young age that work was the enemy. My parents hated their jobs, and so my goal in life was to work really, really, really hard when I was young, retire at 35, and I happened to sell my business at 35. I made a bunch of money and to a point where I didn't have to work anymore. All my needs were met. And so I was like, sweet, I'm gonna retire. And then really quickly I realized that I am not built for retirement. Uh,
Oh
I
man.
I love building things. And
Mm.
so I started a few restaurants. I still have a sushi restaurant, a diner,
All in New York?
yep, all in New York.
I gotta come visit.
Anytime, man. Tacos, sushi, and a diner, whatever you want.
I love it.
And then, so a few restaurants. I started a mastermind group, which has been super fulfilling. 100 of the best business minds in our area get together. We do awesome events. We go down to Miami, New York, do stuff around here. It's fantastic. I joined a publicly listed board of directors for a bank and financial systems company. CVU is the ticker, CFSI is the company, it's kind of community financial services, wealth management, like a bank of $15 billion assets under management bank, wealth
Nice.
management benefits, a bunch of things. So being a public board of director has been really fun. I've learned a lot. I learned a
Is it
lot.
good networking as well?
It's good networking, and I just find a lot of fulfillment in learning things that I don't really like. Now I know so much more about the banking system in America and how it
Hmm.
works, and um, being a board member of public, it's just there's a lot of regulation in the banking industry.
Yeah,
So learning
I
all
want
that
to hear more about that. We'll have to have a second convo on that. That's pretty cool.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So I did that, and then and most recently, so I started a family foundation to give back to
Congrats.
our community, which is very important to me and my family. And then I started a company called Open, which is a learning community for entrepreneurs. We just
Mm.
recently launched we basically will go out and we'll film the most successful people in the world, documentaries on these people and their lessons on how they've navigated entrepreneurship. Our latest one was Damon John from Shark Tank. We just did
Nice.
a documentary with him, and he's shared all these great lessons. And I've worked with him for a number of years, doing a bunch of different things. And he was kind enough to do this with us, and now he's become like a true partner in this business, which has been really fun. So he's going to do a live Q&A. We're doing a contest. We can win $10,000 for your business. So anybody's listening, if anybody
Wow.
win $10,000 for your business and meet Damon John, we're running a contest now. And yeah, it's a great community where people are helping support one another in entrepreneurship.
So guys, I've placed the link for the contest in the chat in the Facebook group. So you'll see it, sign up for it, definitely sign up. That's a great opportunity. Do you want to share anything else around that opportunity that people should be able to take advantage on?
I mean, the contest is cool. If you are interested in trying to win, it's a very like, or just get better at your pitch, right? Like that's what the community is for. It's a lot like, it's basically you can come into the community, learn from other entrepreneurs, hone your ideas, hone your pitch, as well as learn from these really successful people, similar to masterclass, where you can watch
Yeah,
amazing lessons from amazing people. So that's been really rewarding, and I'm doing and currently I'm a partner or an investor in about 13 companies at the moment. So it's
that's
just been a
good.
wild ride, man, wild ride.
I love it. I love it. Any last word that any small biz tips that you can share with our audience before we close out?
I think the biggest one truly is when you feel like it's hard. Uh, it, it it's shocking how much just giving it one more day can do.
Mm,
You
giving
think,
it one more day.
oh man, it's like you one day you're feeling hopeless, desperate, lonely, and then all of a
Yes.
sudden the next day you meet one person that changes everything.
Everything.
Everything. So yeah, build relationships, manage your time
Yes.
wisely, and just keep going.
I love it. Guys, definitely check out Jeff. Check out the contest. Thank you again for jumping on, my friend. This was amazing.
Appreciate
Thank
you
you
having
for your
me.
time. And we are out.
Thank you, brother.